KYWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 20th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 4 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. We continue to learn new details as the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act of what the provincial police knew and when they knew it. City News reporter Chris Curries has the story.
The Freedom Convoy arrived in Ottawa on January 28th, and on January 20th, OPP Superintendent Pat Morris was already under the impression that this wasn't just another protest.
I want to be clear, we felt this would be a long-term event.
He said it was due to high levels of funding and the fact that demonstrators had demands from the federal government that could not possibly be met, and they had outlined that they would stay until they were. On January 25th, Morris knew of hundreds of trucks set to arrive in Ottawa, and all of this information, he says, was shared with the Ottawa Police Service. Chris Curries, City News.
And former Ottawa Police Services Board Chair Councillor Diane Deans will be on the Sam Laprade show coming up at 11:30. One of the candidates for Ottawa Mayor is weighing in on policing. Noor Kadri says the police force is just one of the links in a chain that includes things like the courts, prisons and mental health. He tells Wake Up with Rob Snow criticism of the force is just cheap shots.
I mean, we should be resisting cheap and easy criticism of the police based on biased views of few special interest groups, like aspects of defund the police and all these things. On the other hand, when we look at public safety, policing is just one element of the overall municipal aspects of that system.
And Kadri says as mayor he would add $8 million to that chain for things like policing, substance abuse and mental health. With the weather forecast, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
One more cloudy, cool day, windy as well with some wet weather at times, and then we warm up. So we just have to get through today. The guaranteed high 9 degrees will drop to 2 for the low. Showers, even some wet flurries for the evening, then partly cloudy overnight. For today, the guaranteed high 9.
City News time is 10:02. A local health unit is warning about a phone scam about monkeypox. The Eastern Ontario Health Unit says automated calls are warning people that they have been exposed to the virus and to isolate for 14 days. The calls claim to be from the Ministry of Health. The health unit says the automated call asks you to press a button on your phone. It advises you to not do that and hang up immediately. Neither the unit nor the ministry use automated calls to tell people they have been exposed to an infectious disease. And after a chaotic 45 days in office, UK Prime Minister Liz Truss is calling it quits. City News reporter Laura Carney has the latest.
Liz Truss with the bombshell announcement outside her 10 Downing Street office.
I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
This is the shortest premiership in British history. During her 6-week term, Truss's policies triggered economic turmoil in financial markets and a rebellion in her party that obliterated her authority. The BBC's Nick Eardley.
What's happened over the past 24 hours is the level of chaos in government, the level of chaos in Parliament and the Conservative Party has led to a point where Liz Truss knows that she can't continue.
Truss will stay on for the duration of the short leadership contest, with a new Conservative leader to be in place by next Friday. Former leader Boris Johnson reportedly considering making a bid. Laura Carney, City News.
I am Damilola Unime. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to City News and to Rogers TV. We're so happy that you're here. It is definitely a very busy news day. We're going to be starting today with a number of different clients for you and, of course, guests here on the show. We're going to be speaking with Christina Lovasa. She's an artist. We're going to be speaking with them about a big event happening on Friday. We're also going to be obviously following very closely. Patricia Ferguson from the Ottawa Police Service is going to be part and is testifying at the Emergency Act today. We're going to be Emergency Act inquiry. We're going to be speaking about that all day today. Bob Perkins is going to join us as well, a candidate for Ward 18 for Alta Vista. We're going to be speaking with Bob a little bit later. Now, you'd be maybe tuning in right now and thinking, where is Rob Snow? I don't know if you know, but you can wake up with Rob Snow like I do every day between 6 and 9. We've done a little shift here at City News, and Rob, of course, can be found between 6 and 9. David Smith, our host and producer, is here every day between 9 and 10, and he is taking your calls, the talkback hour, which is fantastic. And then I'm here with you from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m., and we're following lots of different stories, as I mentioned today. Very busy news story. We're watching, of course, the developments over in the UK right now with Liz Truss. We know she's resigned, only been Prime Minister for 6 weeks. So we're following that very closely as well. We're also going to speak today with Alice Irene Whitaker from Ecology Ottawa. She's the Executive Director. And we're going to be speaking about, of course, the municipal election. Boy, it is coming very quick. We're 4 days away. Who is going to be the mayor of this city? It's certainly going to be an interesting time to follow. We're also going to speak with Pam Cross today and Kirsten Mercer. If you've been listening to City News over the last number of weeks, you know that we've been following very closely the Ottawa Valley murder inquiry that happened. 86 recommendations came out of that. And we are following very closely to see what's happening with these recommendations. Pam Cross, Kirsten Mercer is going to join us about 11 o'clock today. Councillor Diane Deans was part of the Emergency Act inquiry yesterday. She was on the hot seat. Councillor Diane Deans is going to join us today. She certainly revealed a lot yesterday, and she was very candid. We're going to speak with her today and ask her some of those questions as well. First of all, we're going to head to speak with Michelle Rochette, City of Ottawa Elections Manager. Hi, Michelle.
Good morning, Sam. How are you?
Good. Considering you're probably the busiest person in the city, I'm very grateful that you're joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we're 4 days away, as I mentioned, Michelle, from this election, such an important election here in our city. What are you seeing in terms of voter turnout compared to, let's say, 2018?
Well, it's hard to compare because, the service delivery model is a little bit different in the sense that, we increased for our special advance days, we had 9 locations as opposed to 6, and we had 2 advanced voting days. The comparison is difficult, but what I can say is, we're hovering at about the 85,000 mark turnout to date, and I would say that that's encouraging, and that we look forward to voting day.
Definitely. And I know when I was looking back on some numbers from 2018, Mayor Watson, of course, was elected in that election for mayor, and we saw 42% of eligible voters come out and cast a ballot. We want that to be much, much higher, don't we, Michelle?
Well, certainly, while I can't predict turnout, my job as the administrator is to make it an option for every eligible elector to be able to vote. So we certainly hope that everyone gets an opportunity to come out and vote. And we've put together a model with over 300 voting locations to do that on voting day. So that's what we're hopeful for, absolutely.
And Michelle, I think back to maybe 6-8 weeks ago, we spoke about the plan for the election. You certainly gave people a lot of opportunities to vote in advance. Was that helpful as well, including, the mail-in ballots and the advanced voting days? Do you think that helped people make sure that they could fit it into busy schedules?
Yeah, I think so. From an election administrator point of view, our job is to make it as accessible as possible for every eligible elector. So we make all of our decisions around that and within the legislative framework.
Mm-hmm. And Michelle, if someone's listening right now and they're thinking, I don't know if I got my voter card, what advice would you have for them?
Well, the first advice I would say, don't worry. If you are an eligible elector, so a resident of the City of Ottawa, an owner or tenant of land, or the spouse of such an owner, a Canadian citizen, at least 18 years old, and not prohibited from voting by law, please go to your voting location. If you don't know what that is or where that is, you can go on our ottawa.ca/vote and use our tool that's called Where Do I Vote? It'll tell you where to go. You can show up there. You will likely have to fill out just a little bit of additional paperwork, so probably an add and amend form. Have a piece of ID that has your name and your qualifying address, and we will have very helpful staff at our voting locations to help you get your ballot in order to cast your vote.
And certainly, Michelle, I've relied a lot on the website at ottawa.ca, listing all of the candidates there as well. And of course, people that are voting on Monday, if they're not sure who's running in their ward, they can definitely check that out. We spend a lot of time talking about the mayoral race, but of course, there's 24 councillors that also have to be elected. So that's also a great resource as well.
It is actually, and there's a few good tools on our website to be able to get the information you need. So, there was a ward boundary change as well. So there's an opportunity to make sure you know what ward you're voting in. There's an opportunity to view all the candidates in your ward. To figure out where you're voting. So there's lots of tools on there. Encourage people to use that. They can also call our office at 613-580-2660, and we have staff that will be willing to also answer their questions.
And are you fully staffed for Monday, Michelle? I know you were looking for people. Is that fully completed now? Yeah, we are fully staffed. I can say that, that fluctuates throughout the days. We continue, we have a significant standby list, and we continue to replenish that and fill spots. So, certainly staffing is always a challenge. There's lots of things going on, a lot of unforeseen for many of our election workers. So we continue to work that through. But right now, yes, I can confirm that we're fully staffed at this time. And Michelle, I know it's really important as well for voting to ensure that the locations are accessible and really available for everyone to vote. I think about seniors or maybe somebody with a disability that wants to ensure that they can vote. How important is that to you when you're setting up these locations around the city, making sure that it is available for everyone? Yeah, accessibility is one of our main priorities. It's very important. So we do a number of things in part of our planning process where we go and we visit every one of these sites to ensure that they are accessible. And if there was anything that wasn't, that we make the adaptations and work on making them accessible. Mm-hmm. We also hire additional staff at certain locations to help facilitate that if that's required. We also have a number of things that we work with as well where we've worked, and it's new here in 2022, where we've worked with paratranspo so people can book their ride 7 days in advance to get to the polls rather than 48 hours. All on voting days, our election office ensures several accessibility tools. So we offer large print ballots, magnifying sheets, braille listing of candidates, braille template. We also have access to a cell phone with the elections call center staff on standby where we can provide services by, if needed, reading the ballot over the phone. So we make every effort possible to make it as accessible for all electors. Wow, you have thought of everything, Michelle. That's really impressive. And, that really makes me feel good about everybody having the opportunity to get out on Monday. We only have about a minute, Michelle, but sort of walk us through, if somebody has never voted before, tell us what they can expect when they get there, the process a little bit. Well, it depends with, based on the paperwork you have. But if you have your voter notification, which we encourage everyone to bring, but it is not required, it makes the process a little bit quicker because you've confirmed that your information is correct and you're going directly to the person that's going to issue you the ballot, and then you'll get a ballot. They'll slip it into a privacy sleeve, and then you'll be directed to go behind a privacy screen where you'll be able to sit down. There'll be some instructions there, and it'll tell you how to fill out your ballot. Once you're done that, you will slip your ballot back into a privacy sleeve, and you will come to an election worker that's responsible for the vote tabulation machine. They will take that privacy sleeve, and they will gently insert the ballot into our vote tabulation machine, and they will watch as that vote gets tabulated. So that's kind of the first process if you have your voter notification. If you don't, that's okay as well. You might have to make I'll call it a little first stop, a little pit stop at the front end of the voting location where you'll be asked to fill out some forms. We'll ask to see your ID, and then you'll go essentially through the same process. It's smooth. Our election workers are trained. You can be served in the language of your choice.
So that's how we look at that. So that's what electors can expect when they get to our voting places.
Well, I can absolutely concur with you. I was part of the advanced voting opportunity, and it was smooth as butter, Michelle. So thank you so much. Wishing you all the best on Monday, and hopefully on Tuesday you get a nap or something. You know, you've been working really hard.
We're sure hoping so, but I also like to thank you, Sam, for helping us get me on the air so that we can get this message out to electors and get them to the voting places. So thank you for your support.
Oh, my pleasure, Michelle. Anytime. Michelle Rochette joining us, City of Ottawa Elections Manager. We know how busy she will be and her team will be on Monday. We hope you're busy as well on Monday because you're going to be voting if you haven't voted already. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
I did it. I need it.
A hero gave it.
And I am alive.
As an organ donor, you can save up to 8 lives and enhance the lives of 75 others. Please go to our website. Pledge a gift of life. You'll be glad you did.
I'm sure right now a lot of you feel like you aren't able to be who you truly are.
What's most important, more important than everybody else knowing who you are, is that you know who you are.
As a young person, time moves slower for you. And just know that things will get better.
It Gets Better Canada is a registered Canadian charity with a focus on uplifting our queer youth through the power of digital storytelling.
As a Two-Spirit person, I use they, them pronouns, but that's not the case for every Two-Spirit person.
There are so many voices out there that we didn't have 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
No matter what your mind tells you, you really are perfect the way you are, so stop beating yourself up so much.
I'm gonna be a boy in a dress, because why not?
Your identity is explosive.
We all have our unique journeys, but one thing that connects us all is the desire to be happy, the desire to celebrate being our authentic selves.
Monday, October 24th is Municipal Election Day in Ontario, an important election to set the post-pandemic course for our community. Turn to Rogers TV for the local results, your comprehensive coverage as the votes are counted. Tune in to find out who's heading to Municipal Council. On election night, Rogers TV leads with local.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's a very busy news day here at City News. You'll want to stay with us all day. We know we've received some information, some breaking news that Headley frontman Jacob Hogard has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. We're going to be following that story very closely for you. Of course, we're looking across the pond as well at the UK. Liz Truss has only been Prime Minister for 6 weeks. Of course, she became Prime Minister under Queen Elizabeth, and she has resigned under King Charles. Very interesting history there. We wanted to speak a little bit closer to home with Christina Levicia. How are you, Christina?
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. So lovely to speak with you. Of course, a very talented artist, and I'm so happy that you're joining us today. You've got a big event on Friday. Tell us all about it, Christina.
Well, we have a big event actually Friday and Saturday this year. So Wall Candy is a show that was created for artists by artists, meaning that we don't have a lot of opportunities in Ottawa to showcase fine art, and that this show was started in 2019 for that very purpose. And we are at Lansdowne this year with our sort of elite version of Wall Candy Art Expo, and this show is called Noir.
Fantastic. And I know how hard you've worked for this event, and I know how hard it has been for artists over the last couple of years. Is this the sweet spot you've been looking for, Christina?
I really hope it is.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
We decided to reemerge with a masqueraded event as a bit of a play on the whole idea that we've been covering the lower halves of our faces for the past few years. Right. And we thought it would be fun to kind of reemerge around this holiday Halloween time using, covering the upper half of our face with masquerade masks. So I'm really hoping that the fun opportunity, the play on the mask idea, and the sort of resurgence of people coming together again for a nice event is just what we need at this time.
Definitely. And how can people attend, Christina?
Well, thankfully, the Friday night our VIP night has been sold out, which, like I said, I'm so grateful to Queensway Carleton, who is actually the benefactor of our fundraiser for this event. But so the Friday night is sold out, but the Saturday, anyone can attend at the Horticultural Building in Lansdowne. And if you pre-order your tickets on Eventbrite through our website, then you actually get $5 off your ticket. So it's a very minimal amount to attend the show. And like I said, we are in support of the Queensway Carleton Hospital. That's where fundraiser for. And so wallcandyartexpo.ca is where you'll be able to find the link to the tickets.
Well, that's fantastic. And I know you've got lots of great artists there, and yourself very talented as well. I think this is, these are the moments that we're starting to feel a touch normal. Not that COVID is over at all, Christina, but I think there's an opportunity to connect and to, realize how much art played a role, especially when the pandemic first happened. We looked to art to fill the gaps, certainly when we were all stuck at home. So I'm hoping, Christina, you have a great event, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. Christina Lavisa joining us. She's an artist. Wall Candy event is happening Friday and Saturday. The Friday night, all sold out, which is good news. But you can definitely head there on Saturday. It is going to be a very busy number of days, 4 days to go, of course, before the big day. Bob Perkins knows all about it. Election day, of course, October the 24th. And Bob joins me now. Hi, Bob.
Yes, good morning, Sam. Thanks for having me on the show.
My pleasure. Bob is a candidate for Ward 18, which, of course, is Alta Vista. There's no incumbent there, Bob. Let's get to know you a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about your history. What have you done work-wise?
So work-wise, I've been a consultant in real estate for the past 30 years, and people are often confused what that means. But in the last 7 years, I've worked with municipalities across the country, working on planning issues, working on portfolio issues, and I've also spent quite a bit of time working with the province as well as the federal government here locally in the NCR. So a lot of that experience is directly relatable to some of the issues and concerns that are facing our ward.
I have to ask you, Bob, we're hearing about the Emergencies Act inquiry. We're hearing testimony. We heard from Councillor Diane Deans, who's going to join me a little bit later on the show, just after 11:30. When you hear about all of the politics and everything that this city's been through, and you still want to, move ahead and become a councillor, does any of that stuff worry you about entering into politics?
Not really. I think the divisive nature of past council was something that probably led to a lot of issues that arose. I'm hopeful, and I should tell you, I'm running as an independent, so I'm not supported by a party, or I don't have any ties to any party or any group. And I'm hoping that council will be made up of more people like me, who come to the table that, whether a good idea comes from the right or a good idea comes from the left, we'll work together and take those ideas and run with them as a collective. So I think while it's, I think there's a reason why perhaps we have some political issues in the past. And I think more transparency and more working together on issues as councillors and as a mayor will help resolve some of those.
Mm-hmm. And we know there's third-party advertisers which have been endorsing certain councillors, and many of those people that are running for council have the same ideology. Is that what you're referring to, Bob?
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to, and not just that. I often wonder if you're supported by an individual party, say a Liberal or Conservative or NDP, if you feel bound to that kind of ideology moving forward as a councillor, if they've assisted you in terms of getting elected. Again, I like to think I want to look at good ideas. I want to look at business plans. Mm-hmm. I want to evaluate all initiatives that the city has to offer in the term, and treat them with a lens of both transparency and independence.
What are the top issues you're hearing at the door?
They're very similar, I guess, across the city in terms of transportation, infrastructure, in particular in my area in terms of roads, safe streets, increase in crime rate. So, and of course, we have a heavy issue in terms of intensification and the passing by council of the recent official plan. So there's a bit of fear in the neighborhood, and I think hence the reason why I'm running as well, because I think I bring a skill set and 30 years of experience and 25 years in the community working on community projects to deliver kind of solutions for those issues. Mm-hmm. I'm very hopeful that we can move it forward.
Really appreciate your time today. Bob Perkins joining us, candidate for Ward 18, Alta Vista. Good luck on the campaign trail, and good luck on Monday.
Thank you so much, Sam.
It certainly has been very interesting to get to know candidates. I think we're upwards of just about 80 candidates that we've spoke to over the last 3 or 4 months, and it's been really important to get to know each and every one of them. And I can't reiterate enough how important this election is on Monday. Do your research. Think about where you are aligned with some of these candidates. And, I've encouraged people as well. You may recognize some names and hear them on the radio and hear them in the media, but look at all the candidates. It's important. And, each and every one of them have put their lives on hold for the last 6, 7, 8 weeks, sometimes longer than that, so that they can have this opportunity to represent the community. So get to know these candidates. Head to ottawa.ca for all that information. We heard from Michelle Rochette a little bit earlier. She's the elections manager for the City of Ottawa. All the details are there. We hope that you can vote. I believe 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. is voting time on Monday, October the 24th. A little bit later in the show, as I've mentioned, after the 11:30 news, Councillor Diane Deans is going to join us. You're watching us on Rogers TV, and you're listening to us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm Derek Fage.
And I'm Timothy Walker.
And we invite you to join us on Election Night.
Starts at 7:30 on Channel 22. We'll also be live streaming and have everything that you need to know.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
I mean, policing in every community is going to be challenged. The community policing model is already a harm reduction response to the way that they police. I just think that we have, again, another opportunity to use police for the things that police should be used for, and then develop some other avenues for things that we can take off a police officer's plate, because it's just not what they should be doing.
$20. Hi, I'm Maggie. Come into my kitchen. When you're using salt in a recipe, check for saltiness. Not all salts are equal. A fine grain salt is a lot more salty than a large grain salt because that takes longer to get into the food. Bum, 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 bum. $20. bucks. 20 bucks. Down the
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Traffic and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's October 20th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 5 degrees, and here's what's making news this hour. Acting Deputy Ottawa Police Chief Patricia Ferguson is testifying at the public inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act back in February. Ferguson led the city's law enforcement operation during the demonstration. She's being questioned by the lawyer for the commission about multiple levels of warnings, including from the OPP, that the convoy crowd was planning a prolonged protest that could last weeks. OPP Superintendent Craig Abrams is also set to testify in today's session. Meanwhile, here on City News, we hear from former chair of the Police Services Board, Councillor Diane Deans, on the Sam Laprade show, just coming up at 11:30 a.m. Deans was on the hot seat at the inquiry yesterday. And 4 days to the municipal election, and Michelle Rochette, city's election manager, is encouraging eligible electors to use all the tools that have been made available to make the voting process seamless. If you have any trouble accessing your voter information, or you still do not know where to cast your ballot, Rochette says you can go to your voting location to confirm that information. And if you do not know where your voting location is, you can check on their website, ottawa.ca/vote. Remember, municipal election day is next Monday. A judge has sentenced Jacob Hogarth to 5 years in prison. The former Headley frontman has also been sentenced to 20 years on the sex offender registry, a 10-year weapons ban, and to have no contact with his victims. City News time is 10:32. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you again for spending time with us here on City News. You know, I've said it once, I'll say it 100 times. This election is so important coming up on Monday, and there's so many different perspectives to this election. Of course, from an economics perspective, we know that the Ottawa Board of Trade, was really interested to see what candidates were saying. We know that obviously affordable housing and homelessness and so many issues, the LRT, so many different perspectives that people are looking at this election and through the lens of. We wanted to speak today with Alice Irene Whitaker, Ecology Ottawa Executive Director, to look through the climate lens. How are you, Alice?
I'm well, thanks. How are you doing?
Good, good. This election is so important, isn't it, Alice?
It really is. It's critical for many reasons, not least of which is climate and the environment. We're at such a key moment for environmental action, and we've really seen in this election how climate is front and center, whether it's how we get around the city to where we build our homes.
And I have to say, I received an email from Ecology Ottawa, I believe it was yesterday, really speaking about the fact that, in the past you haven't felt supported, or you haven't felt the climate has been supported by council. You're hoping to change that, Alice?
Absolutely. We're hoping to see that, real climate action at all levels, from all city council members, from the mayor, the new mayor when they come in. And really our job is to keep an eye on that and inform voters, inform citizens on how Ottawa is doing on climate. And when there are moments that come up when we feel that we can do better, it's to rally our people from across the city to speak out.
So when you were sort of leading up to this election, I know many organizations reached out to candidates, whether that be council or mayor, and sometimes both, asking how they felt on different issues. Did you feel heard? Did you feel that, candidates heard your message and that they were putting the climate at the top of the list as well?
I would say absolutely, and I'd say it isn't just hearing our message, it's hearing the message of so many people who care deeply about environment more than ever before, and you can tell in the way candidates speak in the mayoral debates, with the People's Official Plan Coalition, we've co-hosted debates with mayoral candidates about environment, and you can see how central it is and that people really care. And we issued a survey to all of the candidates across the entire city, the whole election, and had more than 70 weigh in on 13 questions. And these ranged from, energy to housing to bike lanes to the tree canopy in the city. So we heard through those answers that there is a lot of support, not just from the candidates, but of course the people that they're trying to win their support.
Mm-hmm. And we had Michelle Rochette on from the city of Ottawa. She's of course the elections manager, talking about all the different ways people can vote. Do you feel from people that support Ecology Ottawa that they're going to be coming out in full force as well in terms of voting?
Absolutely. I think there is a groundswell of support and interest in this election, and really believe people will be going out to vote. And I also urge voters to go to our website, which is ecologyottawa.ca/election, and they can actually search their ward and see how their candidates responded on these 13 different questions. And there are these long answers, so people could say yes or no, and of course people will say yes, so I support planting trees. There's more nuance than that, but when you get into the long answers, that's where you really see which candidates are saying they're going to be bold on climate. So voters can look at that as they're thinking about who they're going to vote for.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting, and I know I'm looking forward to Monday. We're going to be having special coverage here with my colleague Rob Snow and I, and lots of different guests following the election very closely. I'm sure, Alice, you have it marked in your calendar as well. You're going to be tuning in and hearing about all the election results and really which way the city is going.
Absolutely. It's going to be fascinating, and it's hard to wait at this point, but I think it is such a critical moment for Ottawa. It's such a critical moment for environmental action, and cities have such a role to play. We really can transform in the environment, and so that's why this is such an exciting election to me and many others.
Thank you so much, Alice, for your time today. Alice Irene Whitaker from Ecology Ottawa. She's the executive director there, and we know there was, I think, upwards of 4 debates on the environment for mayoral candidates in this election, so we know it's certainly been top of mind for many people. We have our eye on so many different things today, but I really want to take you to the Emergencies Act inquiry. We know Patricia Ferguson is testifying today. Take a listen.
Commander, tell us what happened on that day.
So, as the event commander, he determined he was going to start getting some wins, I guess would be the showing some action and showing some, movement on the part of the police. And so he determined as you see, former Chief Slowly was very much about let's interdict fuel, let's do what we can to stop the supply going to them. And so we knew that Coventry Road was the site where it was sort of a camp for them. They came back and they had a tent where they ate. They were pretty well established there. I believe there were saunas and things set up. And they had a fuel truck there. So we were aware, and I believe our PLT team had been working with people on that site to engage, to establish a rapport and a relationship. And Superintendent Patterson set up to do what we would call an action and engage the public order team and wanted them to go in and seize the fuel and stop the source of fuel. So that's what took place on the evening of the 6th.
Now, when you spoke of engagement by the PLT team earlier, are you referring only to the PLT team from the OPS?
No, I should have clarified that. The OPP PLT team was assisting our team throughout, both as being a backup, if you will, or an increase in numbers, but also as being sort of sounding boards and guidance. They had a lot of experience in dealing with longer term protests.
Specifically with respect to the Coventry location, what was the PLT team's objective at that time?
I think they were trying to reason with the organizers and there's always a give and take with the PLT approach. So if we can agree with something, that you get something, we get something, that was what they were trying to establish, I believe, without being in the weeds of that, but that was the relationship they were working on.
They were looking for small wins for everybody.
Yes.
And now you spoke earlier about this command triangle with the operational commander at the top of the triangle and then the two sides being the PLT or negotiation and the other one being the kind of enforcement actions on. What is how are those two sides in the bottom supposed to work together?
In concert with each other. I mean, I think what has to happen is that the PLT team needs to be given the time to actually affect some change, and they need to be given the room to do so and the authority to make decisions. And that, I believe, was not happening. That's not in concert. That's the incident commander, the event commander. The public order team understands that they have a role to play, and so oftentimes they will be waiting in the wings until they're given the, go ahead, we've done everything we can, we have cleared as much as we can, and now these people have been advised that they're no longer welcome, and if they don't leave, that they will be arrested, that type of thing.
Right, so because
we're listening to the Emergencies Act inquiry. This is Patricia Ferguson, Deputy Chief for Ottawa Police Service. We're going to go back.
We're supposed to engage and de-escalate and to show the protesters what the lawful limits are, right?
That's right.
So is the idea then that they will make contact and then see if, it can be successfully de-escalated before hard actions is enforced?
Yes, I think in the Coventry example, there were some things that were concerning in that there was fuel on site. The fire department they have a house right across the street. They were seeing some things that they were worried about for safety reasons for the people involved there. So I think that's the approach that they took, was that we're concerned about some of these things, and we want to make sure that you're all safe, and it's upsetting the residents in the area. Right. So those types of conversations, but they take a while to happen, and it requires patience on the part of the event commander.
And how important was it then that these two arms, the PLT and the POU kind of, the enforcement part, that they coordinate a coherent strategy in terms of the timing? Because you said you need to time it so that there's sufficient time for the protesters to cooperate, right?
Yeah, it's very important.
And what happened in this case?
Well, I believe in this case, and I am not 100%. I think Inspector Lucas could probably provide you with more details, but Superintendent Patterson requested that the public order team arrive at the location at Coventry, and I believe there was some back and forth that they did not feel that was that should have happened when it did. They felt that PLT should have been given more time. And ultimately, Superintendent Patterson was very frustrated by that they were not engaging in when he wanted them there. I do believe that they did eventually attend, but the resulting action was that it really damaged the relationship with our PLT team, with the OPP PLT team, and with the event commander. That was a fractured situation after that.
And just so we understand, when the enforcement action started, was the PLT team even notified that this was going to happen?
No, they were not.
So were they caught in surprise?
Entirely off guard.
As much as the protesters?
Yes.
And when you spoke of a sense of betrayal, what do you mean? Is it?
I think they had been experiencing frustration that whole week in terms of being able to negotiate with the convoy organizers. They had established fairly reasonable relationships and open lines of communication, and there was some back and forth leading up to this event, and they were not empowered to make decisions, to be able to get those quick wins. One example was porta potties, that the organizers had asked for those to be delivered into the red zone. And the direction from the event commander was, we're not giving them 1 inch. So, they will have to they'll have to try and come up. It was basically a win-lose scenario. If you leave, we'll let you go. That was sort of where they were given direction, that there was nothing beyond that for a period of time. And I think they were really frustrated by that. And I think the OBP team were frustrated as well. And there was some, I received emails saying that they're going to walk. They've had enough, that type of thing.
Now, before
really interesting testimony there by Patricia Ferguson, Deputy Chief for Ottawa Police Service. We know that the inquiry is speaking to 65 different people. This is just one that was on the hot seat yesterday. Councillor Diane Dean. She's going to join us after the 11:30 news. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, the Lone Star joins us on the show. They're going to be sharing some great recipe ideas using their slow-cooked brisket. And the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum joins us. They're going to be telling us about their brand new edition called Rex, which is a Mars rover prototype. Also on the show, the Day of the Dead Festival is back. We'll give you all the details on that and much more. That's on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counsellor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, certainly in the news, we're hearing a lot about workplace culture, and we're seeing definitely some unhealthy workplace behavior. We wanted to speak with Julie Cousineau today, Partner Health at Normandy Beaudry Partner. Thank you so much for joining me, Julie.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about workplace culture, and there's so much that is involved in that, and I think certainly the world has changed, Julie, in terms of the workplace. Give me a sense of what you're seeing.
What we're seeing is, first that working on organizational healthy culture are very important, especially with the current challenges with the turnovers and attraction of employees. So we definitely see more and more interest of organization in investing in health. The first block that we see usually is that they invest in health and wellness initiatives and total compensation programs. It could be virtual health, employee assistance program activities linked to physical health, a lot more in psychological health as well. The pandemic really increased this need in organization. So that's the first block. But what we're seeing also is interesting of what organization can do in terms of ensuring supportive team management, making sure that it's not only programs, it's not only existence of program, but also the consistency of messages of taking care of health within the decision and considering the business needs.
Because I think it's interesting, you've sort of broken it down into 4 areas here, physical, psychological, financial, and social. I mean, though that really captures everything. Are you seeing a change between now and 2019? And if so, what are you seeing there?
What we're seeing is physical health was already something we were seeing, encouraging people to eat well, to do some physical activities. But what we're seeing in this area is also taking care of people with critical illnesses. How can we have these people feeling well, even though they have a diagnosis, and making sure they're productive? So that's one thing we're seeing in physical health. Psychological health, what we're seeing is more training managers in being able to take care of their employees and to intervene if they see someone not feeling very well. So a lot of trainings were done. Also, how could they put some factors contributing to their health within their team management practices, like recognition, ensuring social support, really supporting employees within the day-to-day activities. And these were actually the 2 areas we were seeing a lot in the last years, but what is raising a lot in terms of interest is social health and financial health. Definitely the pandemic and the current economic situation has clearly demonstrated the importance of these 2 health and the impact that they actually have on physical and psychological health as well. So people are working more on how could we support committee within the organization? How can we encourage employees to save a part of their raise increases, of their increased salary increases, maybe to put a fund aside in order to take care of any challenges that we could be seeing in the next month.
Julie, are employees even more engaged in these 4 areas now that the talent pool is so tight? Are they demanding more, do you think, of employers in these areas?
They definitely expect this actually from their employer, and I think it's no more nice to have. It's really a must-have by organization. Employees are looking for that support. Virtual health is actually one of the new benefits that employees are looking forward. They probably have tested it with one of their organization, and if they want to change, they are asking the question whether it would be available or not. So it's now part of the benefits that should be considered.
And what does it really take? I mean, if there's an unhealthy workplace, and certainly in the media, especially today, we're seeing about a lot of different unhealthy workplaces and practices. Where can you start? It feels like a big mountain to climb if you do have an unhealthy workplace.
And you're right. Sometimes it looks like a mountain, and you definitely, as an organization, need to go step by step. What we encourage organization is to have a varied health offer as well. It's not only looking at people that are unhealthy or with intervention programs, but also looking at how can I make it a culture in my organization to support employees so that they stay healthy as well. It's a lot, as you say, with the culture of what we're seeing in the media, it's definitely working on supportive team management. It has a lot to do with managers, although they do have their own challenges as well because they've been through the pandemic as well, and they need to deal a lot with the changes in their team. But how could we recognition, social support is not something that takes that much time. So saying thank you, recognizing the strength of an employee is not something something that takes that much time, and there are a lot of great benefits also with the employee and the impact on the team.
For sure. Julie Cousineau joining us today, a partner with Health at Normandin. Beaudry partner. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful.
I learned a lot. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
We wanted to take you back to the inquiry, Emergencies Act inquiry. Patricia Ferguson, Deputy Chief of Ottawa Police Services, testifying today. We're going to step in here for a minute.
Thank you. Okay, so now on February 8th, the same day that as this meeting, a new development happened, and that's the arrival of the integrated planning group led by the OPP chief, Superintendent Party, and the RCMP Superintendent Liu, right?
That's correct.
Tell us what that was all about.
So at the time, it was actually only in reviewing and preparing for this that I realized how they came about. At the time, I was not sure what the genesis of them arriving was, but my understanding is it was some non-OPS leaders, police leaders, who had determined that Ottawa needed help and assessed that they could come in and assist us in providing a plan. We had been asking for resources. Chief Slowly had been going to a variety of services, mostly with the RCMP and the OPP, requesting assistance in the way of police resources. And I think what they were trying to, this group was trying to determine how many people we needed and what was the ultimate goal and what was the plan. And we struggled a little bit with coming up with a plan per se. So I mentioned earlier the concept of operations. That was part of what we were working on there to provide them those services, to say this is what we are hoping to do and this is how we would like to do it in broad strokes, not without a full plan. And so this team, I was made aware of them. I was spoken to. Carson Party reached out to me by phone and said he was coming into town and that they were here to assist and in helping us to, work out the details of our plan.
Now, I understand that there was a meeting.
We're listening a little bit into the Emergencies Act inquiry. That was Patricia Ferguson, Deputy Chief, and of course, of the Ottawa Police Service. We're going to be following this story very closely. You want to stay with us. You'll definitely want to be here. After the 11:30 news, Councillor Diane Deans will join us. She was in the hot seat yesterday. We're going to ask her some questions today, too. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 20th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it is mostly cloudy, 5 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The officer in charge of planning with the Ottawa Police admits they made a mistake in preparing for the convoy protest. City News parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney joins us with more on the testimony at the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act.
Through her testimony today, Acting Deputy Chief Patricia Ferguson with the Ottawa Police admits they erred in their planning when they assumed this would be a shorter protest, even though there were a few levels of warning, including from the OPP, that this would be a prolonged event. She does note, however, they also had information that people would leave after that first weekend. She acknowledges they used a boilerplate plan to try and handle the convoy.
Now, you agree that the planning was premised entirely on the assumption that this was going to be a 2-day event, right?
Yes. Ferguson may also be asked about the allegations that we heard yesterday about infighting within the Ottawa Police that impacted operations around the convoy. We'll also hear today from OPP Superintendent Craig Abrams. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And Councillor Diane Deans was on the hot seat at the inquiry yesterday. She'll be speaking with Sam Laprade right here on City News in about 30 minutes. With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Some wet weather in the forecast today, mainly for the afternoon. We've got these showers. Just one more cool day before we warm up. But we'll get into a gusty southwest wind. The guaranteed high 9 degrees today, 2 for the low. Could see some wet flurries mixing with the showers this evening before we get into partly cloudy conditions overnight. Friday looks great. Sun and cloud, windy, but not as cool, up to 14. For today, the guaranteed high 9.
City News time is 11:02. Challenges remain at the Perth and Smiths Falls District Hospital due to COVID-19. City News reporter Chris Curries with more details.
The president and CEO says there are still severe pressures in the emergency department, and they're facing compound pressures overall at their hospital.
These days we have between 40 and 45% of our inpatients no longer needing acute care, but unable to be placed in the community.
Michael Cohen says they are also seeing a significant spike in COVID-19 illnesses among patients. He tells Wake Up with Rob that the staffing situation is currently stable but fragile, similar to what it's like across the province due to a lack of availability of qualified healthcare workers. Chris Curries, City News.
City News time 11:03. The Supreme Court of Canada has decided not to hear a case of residential school survivors who have fought a years-long battle with the feds to release thousands of records. The group of survivors from St. Anne's Residential School in Northern Ontario had looked to the country's highest court after spending the last decade fighting the federal government to hand over those documents. The Supreme Court did not provide a reason for dismissing the case, and the 2006 agreement between the federal government, residential school survivors, the Assembly of First Nations and churches governed what financial recompense survivors would receive. Canadian musician Jacob Holgard has been sentenced to 5 years behind bars after being convicted of sexual assault. Holgard was found guilty earlier this year of sexually assaulting an Ottawa woman at a Toronto hotel in 2016. The Crown has requested a sentence of 6 to 7 years, above the normal range for a sexual assault by someone with no criminal record. The victim told Holgard's sentencing hearing that what happened will haunt her for the rest of her life. I am Damilola Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Carol Culleton, Anastasia Cusick, and Natalie Warmendam. These are the names we're remembering. This is week 5 of a 6-part series on after the inquiry into the murders of these 3 women at the hands of a former partner. We wanted to spend some time today talking about these recommendations that came from the inquiry. We know there was 86 of them. And we know some of them have had some action, but not enough. And one of the reasons we wanted to put a spotlight on this is for the families of these 3 beautiful women, but also an opportunity to hopefully ensure that this does not happen ever again. I am joined today by Pam Cross and Kirsten Mercer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much
for having us.
Here. Of course, Pam Cross is a lawyer, Kirsten Mercer, lawyer for the EVA, Renfrew County. Pam, you were part of this inquiry. You were there, I believe, every day, I was told. When you think back to the inquiry and now these recommendations, are you hopeful that these are moving forward?
I am hopeful in a cautious kind of way. The inquest was a very moving event. More importantly, I think I would say that as I heard in the community in the weeks leading up to the inquest, there was a lot of doubt in Renfrew County about whether the inquest would lead to any change. People were cynical, and I think that's easy to understand. And so I'm hopeful because I feel like we have to have change. These women shouldn't have died. The over 200 women who've been killed by men in Ontario since the murders of these women should not have died. And we need to make these systemic changes so that this level of violence against women is at least reduced, if not ended.
Mm-hmm. And Kirsten, what are some of the systematic barriers to seeing some change here?
Well, I think it's helpful to identify the scope of the challenge. And I think the 86 recommendations that came from the jury are a reflection of just how broad an approach is needed. And so when you really are trying to take a systemic look at rooting out a problem that goes in some ways to some pretty fundamental aspects of our society, misogyny, gender-based violence, and some of those attitudes, eradicating that or pulling that out by the roots is a complicated problem. That being said, I think there's a lot that we know about what needs to be done and about how to go about doing that work in a really careful and systematic way. Mm-hmm. And I think the jury's recommendations highlight that fact and provide a roadmap, if you will, for what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the barrier, in a sense, is really just one of political will and a desire to act. And I don't want to be overly simplistic. I don't think any of these solutions are the solution of a day or a week or even a year. Some of this work will take much longer than that and should be done in a really careful and intentional way. Mm-hmm. But we believe that we know a lot about what we need to be doing to do better to eliminate intimate partner violence in the province of Ontario and in Canada. And we're looking for partners in government and across the system to support and throw their weight behind implementing these resolutions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Kirsten. That was very helpful. And Pam, when we think about the inquest and the jury, for those that haven't followed it maybe as closely as yourself or people that were more intimately involved, like the families, give us a sense of who was part of that jury.
Sorry, I lost the last word there. Who was part of the jury?
Yes.
The jury was made up of 5 people from Renfrew County. They're selected at random. We didn't know their names. They're anonymity is protected for purposes of privacy and safety, I would imagine. They were 3 men and 2 women, a variety of ages. And here's the most important thing to know about that jury. They worked very hard. These are 5 people who, until they found their name on the jury list, may not have thought about the murders since they happened, or may not even have known about them. And they put aside whatever else they had planned for themselves for the month of June. They sat in that inquest room. They listened. They listened so carefully. Unlike in a criminal trial, jurors can ask questions at an inquest, and they asked questions. They asked tough questions. They wanted real answers, not glib answers. We could tell that they cared about what had happened to Carol, Natalie, and Anastasia. We could tell that they wanted to make their community and other communities safer for women. It was really quite powerful to watch the way in which those 5 people, random people, paid attention and came up with these 86 recommendations that are smart, they're creative. The first recommendation that the province declare intimate partner violence to be an epidemic, right through to the 86th recommendation that the parties to the inquest gather in a year to see how well the recommendations are doing in terms of implementation. That's creativity and that's commitment.
Absolutely. Very well said, Pam. And certainly that's one of the roles that we're trying to play here by having this 6-part series as well. Is, it's very frustrating to me, whether it be the Emergencies Act inquiry or this inquest into these murders. It's one thing to have these and they cost a lot of money, and it's, to your point, a lot of time is invested, and often they get shelved. And I just didn't want to see that happen. So when we think, Kristen, about all of the recommendations, the 86 that Pam just referred to, is there 1 or 2 that you feel, haven't moved forward at all that you think by this point should have?
I think that's such an excellent question. And, just building on the comments that Pam was making, I actually want to focus on the way in which we go about implementing these recommendations. And the one I'm going to highlight just for us now is recommendation number 5, which was a call that the jury made very wisely to convene an implementation committee. The reason I think that that's important to go first is that what we learned through the inquest process is we need to be listening to the people who are on the front lines of these issues, whether they're survivors, whether they're frontline workers who work every day with people who are living with violence, or whether there are other places in the system. And when we listen to those people, the gaps and challenges become really clear. And so recommendation number 5, it sounds like a very sort of a recommendation for a meeting, or a committee. It sounds sort of bureaucratic, but it's a really important one, because what it says is we don't want you to go away, government or whomever else might be receiving a recommendation. We don't want you guys to go away into a room and sit around a table and decide what to do. You need to sit down at a table with us. This implementation committee is designed to have representations from the front line and the sector, together with public policymakers and other aspects of government, to think carefully about what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. And so that implementation committee needs to happen first. Before we get into making decisions about all the other things, because that implementation committee should be the quarterback, if you will, for how everything else gets done. And doing that in a good way with the right people around the table is essential to making sure that the other recommendations are implemented in an effective way.
Mm-hmm. Very helpful, Kristen. Thank you. And Pam, I can't even imagine what it was like to be one of those jurors, because I know they had to listen to some very difficult topics. How hard was it, Pam, for the families as well?
I think it was difficult for everybody, and obviously it was most difficult of all for family members, many of whom, if they attended, did so virtually, so I wasn't in their company or they weren't in my presence. But we saw a great deal of courage by family members. I'm thinking in particular of Malcolm Warmerdon, child of Natalie Warmerdon, who was a party in the inquest, and so was actually an active participant, asking some tough questions of witnesses and putting forward suggestions for recommendations. I just can't even imagine how difficult that must have been, but there he was every day because, as he said on the opening day, my mother, if this had happened to somebody else, would have wanted to make sure that the system changed in the future. Wow. And so I feel that's what's driving me to be here. Those are my words, but reflective of what he shared with us on the first day. And I think if I can just make one other comment at this point, I agree with everything that Kirsten has just said in terms of the importance of creating this implementation committee. One thing the government could do at the same time is to implement recommendation number 1, the one that would declare intimate partner violence to be an epidemic. That doesn't cost any money. I don't think it requires a huge amount of analysis, but it clearly situates intimate partner violence as a public health issue, and we really need to look at it through that lens.
Really appreciate that. We're going to come back with Pam Cross and Kirsten Mercer, both lawyers, speaking about the murders of Carol Culleton, Anastasia Cusick, and Natalie Warmerdam. We're putting a spotlight on the recommendations that have come out of the inquest. We want you to stay with us here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
It was John's graduation. We were so proud. We all got together for a picnic. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and we listened. It helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of John, because now he has a real future to look forward to.
Monsieur de Champlain, when I finish paddling through this wilderness and reach China, I shall greet them wearing this.
Monsieur Nicolet, your mission shall be for the honor of the king and the Holy Faith.
In the summer of 1634, Jean Nicolet set off from Quebec to find a trade route that would link Europe and North America with China.
But where is it?
Further. I know the place you are seeking.
For months, Nicolet pushed through the wilderness, searching for the Western Sea.
Goja! Mississippi!
What did he say?
He says, Mississippi, great water.
Mississippi, the sea, China.
Jean Nicolet was wrong. It was Lake Michigan, not the Pacific. But others would follow his dream, Joliet, La Salle, the La Vérendrys, and they would map most of North America from the Rockies to the Gulf of Mexico.
I'm Derek Fage.
And I'm Timothy Walker.
And we invite you to join us on election night on Rogers TV and, of course, on our website.
We're going to have a panel of experts and community leaders joining us as we provide everything that you need to know about this municipal election because it could be historic.
There's going to be a lot of new faces around the council chambers, as you can imagine, and we are going to break it all down for you.
So 7:30 on Channel 22. Please join us.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
have sort of a strategic, what do you think they're looking for from us in order to give us resources.
What did you tell them?
My sense,
Thank you so much for staying with us here on City News. We're continuing the important conversation. This is week 5 of taking a deep dive into the recommendations that came out of the tragic murders of Carol Culleton, Anastasia Cusick, and Natalie Warmendam. It's my pleasure to welcome back Pam Cross and Kirsten Mercer, both lawyers very heavily involved in this inquest. And Pam, when we think about all of the recommendations, there's 86 there. We spoke about a number of them. We spoke about how important language is. There's a lot of different themes throughout these recommendations. Which ones keep you up at night, Pam?
That's a really challenging question to answer because I kind of like to say all 86 of them. The ones I'm going to identify reflect not that they're more important than the other ones, but reflect the focus of my work, which is in the area of family law. And so the recommendations that speak to adequate funding for women's grassroots organizations are critical. These are organizations, especially after the past and ongoing time of the pandemic, have really struggled and come through to support the women and keep the women in their communities safe. It's difficult to do that with inadequate funding support. But there are a few recommendations also that look to things like, should we have a law in Ontario or a policy in Ontario that makes it possible for a woman to go to the police and get information about a partner's past history of abuse? If there's some red flags, let's say, in a new relationship, is this something that we should be creating? 4 provinces in Ontario have done this. They've created legislation that allows that to happen. Should Ontario follow suit? That's one of the recommendations. Coercive control is how we talk about the kinds of abuse that aren't necessarily physical, but can be so psychologically damaging and isolating for a woman. Coercive control is now understood in family law to be one of the considerations a judge must take into account when they're making a decision about parenting arrangements for children. Well, should we broaden that so that in the criminal law we have an offense called coercive control? What would the impacts of that? Are there potential negative impacts of that for women? That's just a few, Sam, because we don't have all day, and there are so many great recommendations here to work on.
I'm just feeling haunted by a conversation that I had with a woman. I just happened to bump into her at a Tim Hortons in Kemptville, and she was crying, and I was sitting in my car, and I said to her, "Can I help you? Is there something that I can do?" And she said to me, "I'm just dropping my son off." This was on a Friday. We're to meet at the Tim Hortons, and my ex-husband spends time with him, their young son. And she said, "I know he's going there. I know he will be abused. The police don't believe me. What I've done is I've left my ex-husband. But the problem is now is my child goes there and sustains the abuse that I used to get." And she was just beside herself. And that conversation still haunts me to this day, because we know that, women are trying to get out, but situations like that make it really hard, Kirsten.
Yeah, Sam, I think that's such a good insight. And I think actually the haunting story that you shared shines a bit of a light on some of the realization that I think the jury came to over the course of the inquest. Really that understanding that maybe people don't see until they have an interaction like that one, or maybe they don't realize just how pervasive this problem is. And I think, since the inquest in June, there have been a number of high-profile femicides or incidents of murder of women by their intimate partners or by somebody who was proximate to them with a history of intimate partner violence. I think we are being shaken out of our slumber a little bit at the moment around the epidemic that the jury was speaking about. And that that diagnosis that the jury made that this is all around us. And we don't see it because so often that violence is private violence until it explodes into the public realm, either because it's heightened to the point that somebody's been killed, or that that private violence, and I'm making air quotes because obviously I don't think that's the right way to see it, but that violence that takes place within a relationship or within a home spills over into another kind of more public, more visible violence. Mm-hmm. And I think we're having some reckoning around that in our country. One needs look no further than the Mass Casualty Commission in Nova Scotia to look at some of the awful consequences of this kind of violence when it's ignored. And so, I think one of the things that keeps me up at night, if I can share some of the recommendations and work that was done around the inquest, are doing a better job of seeing those red flags when they exist, and then getting the right people around the table and the right steps in place to intervene in a way that course corrects or that meets the level of risk that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. In Ontario, we have the benefit of this process called the Domestic Violence Death Review Committee. And that's a committee that has existed for many years that looks specifically at intimate partner violence and domestic violence murders, and studies those and says, what do we know about the risk factors that are present in cases when they enter the realm of lethal risk? What are the things that we should have seen? And so we have a really good level of knowledge and understanding about what some of those lethal risk factors are. Particular kinds of violence, particular points in the story. So, a great example of something that we know now is a huge time of risk is when a partner leaves a relationship, makes a step to leave and get away. Their risk at that time actually goes up. All of this knowledge that we've accumulated and these risk factors that we've come to understand, we have to do a better job of getting the system to intervene before it results in a fatality or a heightened violence that has lifelong effects on a survivor. And so some of the things that the inquest jury talked about are better coordination between frontline workers and justice sector partners. We have this tool called a high-risk table that exists in most jurisdictions, and that's where people can sit around a table and they have a very careful process of identifying cases where some of these flags exist. But we heard from my clients, from the organizations who do frontline work in Renfrew County, that sometimes they have a hard time getting invited to that table. So they're seeing the reality of violence, and they know as experts in identifying risk that the situation is spiraling, and they see it coming, and they aren't always able to get in and convene those processes and those conversations so that people who have different kinds of tools to intervene know the risk that's coming and then can take steps to prevent the kind of tragedy that we saw in Renfrew County. And if I can just say, and certainly this is not a surprise now, but nobody who was involved with the perpetrator of those murders believes that nobody could have seen that coming.
Right. I really appreciate it.
That's true of almost every domestic homicide. If I can just sort of finish off by adding a brief comment to Kirsten's. In the vast majority of domestic homicides, people knew, and they were both predictable and preventable. So, as Kirsten has said, it's time that we move beyond knowing that to implementing the changes to systems that will mean that fewer women die.
Very well said. Pam Cross, Kirsten Mercer, thank you so much for your time today. I could speak to you all day because it is such an important topic. Thank you so much for spending time with us on City News.
And thank you for the attention to this issue. It's critically important. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Carol Culleton, Anastasia Cusick, and Natalie Warmendam. Those are the names that we're remembering today. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
My name is Joel Tamas, this is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, some people used the A word. They called it an accident, but it wasn't. An accident implies that no one was at fault. But when someone impaired by alcohol and/or drugs chooses to drive, they're fully responsible for the crash that can result. So please, for the memory of my brother DJ and the thousands of families whose lives have been shattered by impaired drivers, let's drop the A word.
A crash caused by impaired driving is not an accident.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talk.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
One for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 20th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, partly cloudy, 6 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. The inquiry investigating the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act to end the Freedom Convoy protest in Ottawa is hearing from members of the city and the provincial police forces today. Acting Deputy Ottawa Police Chief Patricia Ferguson is testifying now, after which we'll hear from Ontario Provincial Police Superintendent Craig Abrams. They're giving their perspective on how the operations to uproot the February occupation of the downtown ultimately led leaders to enact the Emergencies Act. Several high-level officials are slated to speak throughout the remainder of the public inquiry, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Now, Councillor Diane Deans is coming up on the Sam Laprade show in just a couple of minutes. She testified at the inquiry yesterday. And Quebec Premier François Legault is going to announce his new cabinet today during a ceremony at the National Assembly. Legault's party secured 90 of the legislature's 125 seats in the provincial election, giving him a wide range of members to choose from. The Premier and his fellow CAQ members were sworn in on Tuesday. City News time is 11:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, of course, here on City News and Rogers TV, we are following very closely about the Emergencies Act inquiry. We know that there are 65 people in total to testify, and there have already been some bombshells, some interesting information coming out of the inquiry, some dissension among the ranks, if you will. We wanted to speak with Gloucester Southgate Councillor Diane Deans. Hello, Councillor Deans.
Hi, Sam.
I'm sure it's been an interesting couple of days, and I want to ask you, Councillor, did you sleep better the night before you testified or the night after?
Well, strangely enough, I slept well both nights.
Mm-hmm. Has it been difficult on you, Diane, this time? And, you were thinking about running for mayor, and, you got ousted from, as we know, from the Ottawa Police Services Board. I know you took that very difficult. Has it been a difficult time for you?
On a personal note, I have spent 28 years of my
career at the City of Ottawa. I think I've given my heart and soul to this community. And I like to think that I've made a positive difference in the time that I've been there. This period is certainly, one of the lower periods in my career at the city. And, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone to go through what I've gone through personally. But listen, the community went through an awful lot here, and every decision that I was making and the board was making through that period was in the best interest of community. It was intended that we do everything in our power to bring a peaceful end to the occupation of our city without any serious injury or death to anyone.
Mm-hmm. It was such a difficult time, and I think this inquiry and really taking a deep dive and hearing and from people like yourself and of course Mayor Watson and a number of people that have already testified, I think it's surprising, Diane, to the community as a whole to hear about the disagreements behind the scenes. It sounds like there wasn't a lot of collaboration and coordination, and as residents, it kind of is unsettling. Would you agree, Diane?
Yeah, and as I said at the inquiry yesterday, we don't have to be the best of friends, but we're on the same team, and we needed to work together in the interest of the community. And, I tried to do that every day, but right from the start of the term, Mayor Watson seemed to make a decision that this term was going to be different in the way that he structured the committees and the people that he put in charge. And he built, some have referred to it as the Watson Club, but I would say he built a team that he could rely on and, force pretty much any vote he wanted through council. And it made this term very difficult for everyone, I think. And, in times of crisis, it's when it really shows through. And, I was working very hard. The board was working very hard. We didn't have a lot of ability to be in constant contact with the mayor's office. And, part of that was COVID, but it was also, there was very little desire, I think, to work in lockstep. And, the divisions come out in that kind of a situation. And I didn't want that. I've never wanted that. I've spoken to the mayor about it on a couple of occasions, but I couldn't change that.
One of the biggest surprises for me yesterday, Councillor, and there were a number of them, and I don't think I'm alone in that, is the fact that there was a telephone call recorded by your office between Mayor Watson and yourself. Is that something that you normally have done? Have you ever recorded phone calls between other political leaders before?
No, that was a very unusual thing for me to do, and I did it because I guess there was a loss of trust. I had heard for the last number of days that council, the mayor's people on council were planning to unseat me as chair of the Police Services Board, and I guess there was a lot of concern going into that call, and I felt I needed an accurate record of what was said.
Mm-hmm. I understand. We'd like to play about a minute of this call and then get your thoughts, Diane. We're going to play that now.
Okay, Jim, what do you know about what's coming that impacts me today, or the conversation that's happening? I think I've worked really hard for the last 20 days. I think it would be a courtesy to at least let me know what's coming at me.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to some councillors today, as I try to before every meeting, and see what their plans are, and if I get any sense of what's going on, I'll try to give you a heads up.
Would you support a vote of non-confidence in me?
Haven't decided that yet.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the heads up. As I said, I hope that there's that you don't rush into this, because I think it would be a mistake at this point, and I think it would undermine Steve Bell to have someone to come in literally 2 or 3 days after what could have been
Councillor Deans, you can feel the tension. I mean, I know I feel it, and I'm just listening to it. You were obviously part of the conversation. It feels tense. It feels awkward. What was that moment like for you? Because I sense, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I sense that you knew right there that something was coming.
Oh, I had known for 48 hours that motion was coming. As you heard on that tape, I don't think you played it right there, but on that tape, that's when I had told the mayor about the hiring of Matt Trigian, and he leaked that information to the media and told the media that the unseating of me was related to that. But of course, it was, you can hear from the tape, it was well known around the council table much prior to that. So I think they just felt they could sell that better as a reason. But it was frustrating. And, what I heard from the testimony so far at the inquiry is, and it's frustrating, Sam, to me, is that there was a lot of information sharing with senior city officials, the mayor's office, city manager's office, and others about what was happening that was never shared with the board. And the board is the oversight body. So, I'm frustrated by that. My sense is that the Police Services Board only came into their orbit when they were looking for someone to blame.
Councillor, let me ask you this. We've heard reports, we heard a little bit of it yesterday, obviously, regarding dissension in the ranks. We've heard, certainly through this, we've heard through a number of members of the police force that there were some issues regarding then Chief Slowly, and we see, obviously Deputy Chief Trish Ferguson, she's on the stand today testifying. What was it like to know that there was some dissension, maybe some behavior challenges, maybe in behalf of leadership? Was it challenging to be the chair of a board where you knew that there was dissension amongst the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, culture inside Ottawa Police has been difficult for a while, and other chiefs, not just Chief Slowly, have faced criticism and dissension as well. But it was worrisome to me during the Freedom Convoy. I was certainly hearing about tension inside the senior ranks, but I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on bringing an end to this occupation of our city, and I was just aware of it, and I was concerned about it because I didn't have the details and I didn't know what was happening. But there was a story that was going to break I think on the 15th from CBC that was going to be casting Chief Slowly in this very negative light, and it was obviously leaked from inside police at the senior most level. So, it just was an indication to me that there was trouble inside. And I had heard a little bit about it from Chief Slowly and another senior officer. So that was very concerning. It was one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I felt that in the short term, we should try and rise above this and make sure we have a senior command structure in place that will be, the best hope of bringing a speedy conclusion to this occupation of our city.
Councillor, did you ask Chief Slowly to resign, or was that on his own accord?
Yeah, I think I made it really clear yesterday how that unfolded, and he was ultimately the one that made that decision, and he phoned me that morning that he decided it was time to go, and we had that conversation.
Any regrets, Diane?
I guess, we needed, I said this at the commission yesterday, we needed to be in the same boat. We needed to be rowing in the same direction. And I feel that didn't happen to the extent it needed to happen, and I regret that, and I hope there's some lessons learned coming out of all that. And I guess my other observation, and from the tape that you played, is being a leader is not just about how you act in front of an audience, but it's the actions that you take when you think no one's looking. And I think that tape yesterday kind of showed sort of a darker side of some of what was happening.
There were times where there were days where I thought, if we can get out of this with no one losing their life, we're going to be lucky. I mean, it was a very tense time, as you know. Do you think the politicking and the lack of collaboration between the different levels of government? I mean, we could talk about the role that obviously Premier Ford played. Do you think all of that, the lack of coordination, and put people's lives at risk?
I think, normally when there's a large-scale event like the G20 in Toronto that happened a number of years ago, there's a lot more lead time to kind of get your ducks in a row. This occurred fairly quickly. It was very unique in terms of a demonstration turned occupation. It wasn't something we had before. And I think, there's a lot of value in this commission doing these hearings, because I think there are lessons to be learned. And I think there's protocols that can be put in place in terms of information sharing and resource sharing that we can learn from this experience in order that we not repeat it.
Mm-hmm. Councillor, I really appreciate your time. I know, you're wrapping up your term, and it's been a very challenging time for so many, and I really value the fact you join us here on City News.
Sam, it's always great to talk to you, and I've enjoyed that, and hopefully someday I'll get to talk about something other than City Hall with you.
Absolutely. Always an open invitation. Thank you so much. Councillor Diane Deans joining us from Gloucester Southgate. We know, of course, her testimony yesterday was very important in this inquiry. Stay with us here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, the Lone Star joins us on the show. They're going to be sharing some great recipe ideas using their slow-cooked brisket. And the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum joins us. They're going to be telling us about their brand new edition called Rex, which is a Mars rover prototype. Also on the show, the Day of the Dead Festival is back. We'll give you all the details on that and much more. That's on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
Putting the focus on smaller businesses and less larger sized businesses, as it's very different for people like me that are like literal small business owners, where we've bootstrapped money and we don't have a lot of funding, and to be able to help us through that. There has been some help for us, but I think it would be a greater opportunity to see us thrive through the next couple of years.
$20. And Maggie, Mrs. Calabash, come into my kitchen. A quick mayonnaise, egg yolks, garlic, Dijon mustard, lemon juice, olive oil, immersion blender. Go down, come up. Voila, mayonnaise. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. Yeah.
Monday, October 24th is Municipal Election Day in Ontario, an important election to set the post-pandemic course for our community. Turn to Rogers TV for the local results, your comprehensive coverage as the votes are counted. Tune in to find out who's heading to Municipal Council. On election night, Rogers TV leads with local.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, make no mistake about it, it is a very busy day in our newsroom. Of course, we've got news from across the pond about Liz Truss. She has resigned as the Prime Minister. We know that was only a 6-week adventure for her. She became Prime Minister under Queen Elizabeth, and she resigned under King Charles. So we're definitely watching across the pond. We're watching very closely here at the Emergencies Act inquiry as well. And we're also following the story of Jacob Hoggard. Of course, Headley frontman has received 5-year sentence, and we're going to be following that for you closely as well. Certainly lots of news. We wanted to take a little bit of a detour today and speak with Eric Alper, publicist and music commentator. How are you, Eric?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We heard the news, of course, about Jacob Hoggard, and that certainly is interesting news today.
Yeah, he gets 5 years imprisoned for sexual assault, even though that 52 people apparently wrote letters of character. Well, I kind of want to know who those 52 people are right now. But yeah, long time coming, and that's it for his career.
Absolutely. We wanted to catch up with you. We always love having you here on City News. You're such a fantastic guest. We want to spend time with you. I think every week we're hoping you're going to join us to talk about music. And this week, I would love to talk about, what are the most expensive records that have ever been sold? I mean, this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, because this isn't just about music. We get to go in the investment, and we get to make hopefully somebody out there in Ottawa very wealthy if they have any of these records in their attic or in their basement. So this kind of is a business story. It's a music story, but it's also a fun story about why things are so rare and also how much money people have to spend on things.
100%. I can't believe some of these numbers. Walk us through. Start us off maybe with Bob Dylan.
Yeah, so Bob Dylan, his song Blowing in the Wind is, of course, a really popular song. And a lot of people already have that either on streaming or in their on a physical album. But this one, though, there is only one copy. In fact, it happened this year. He pressed a one-off physical recording that wasn't made for mass consumption. There is a brand new high-fidelity technology that is out, and they tested it using Bob Dylan's Blowing in the Wind. This new technology can't scratch your records. It'll always have perfect sound from now until the end of time. And somebody bought this for $1.77 million, which means that if I'm kind of friends with that person that spent that much money, they better have a really good sound system.
No kidding. That's shocking to me.
Yeah, look, it's a really, really great song, but the fact that there's only one copy of it being made, that increases the actual value of something,
For sure.
And that's going to change hands too.
For sure. Certainly it seems to me that, money is blowing in the wind in that particular case, for sure. There's lots of great other examples here that you've shared. John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Walk us through this one.
Yeah, the Beatles are going to be pretty heavily on this on the top 5 list, but the Double Fantasy album was John Lennon's last album that he released when he was alive, and this is kind of got a little bit of a weird story to it because this was the copy that sold for $900,000 in an auction, was the one copy that John Lennon signed for his killer, Mark David Chapman. And if that's not gruesome enough, the police sergeant wrote his notes from the investigating detective on the back of the copy. He had no idea what he was writing on. He just needed some sort of piece of paper to make notes of the crime scene. So this copy that went up for auction not only has John Lennon's last autograph, but it also has the crime scene notes on the back of the cover.
That is so bizarre, Eric.
Yeah, and I know Yoko Ono tried to get this to stop being auctioned off just for just a human reason, but she failed to do it. And so far, there's nobody that has come out that said that they own the copy of it, so the buyer is still private.
Wow, that's fascinating. Let's talk a little bit, of course, about the Beatles.
Yeah, so there's an album called the White Album, or otherwise known as the Beatles, and it's the double-sided album. And if you have an original copy, you'll probably notice that they're numbered on the front. I happen to have number 742,343, so that's not very rare. But there's the original first copy, number 000001, and it went to Ringo Starr. And number 2 went to Paul, number 3 went to John, number 4 went to George Harrison. But Ringo Starr gave up that copy of the album, the very first pressing of the Beatles' classic White Album. And not only is it his copy, but it also has his fingerprints and therefore his DNA. So that copy went for $790,000, and I, for one, will love to see a number of Ringo Starr robots happening in the next 20 years using that same DNA.
Well, that's wild. These these numbers are just fascinating to me, that people invest this kind of money, for sure. And there's a really interesting one here that I want to talk about when it comes to the Quarrymen. And there's 2 names here that I've never heard before. I know you have. And of course, that's John Duff Lowe and Colin Hanlon. Take us here.
Yeah, so these are 2 guys that have kind of lost their place in history a little bit, but they actually worked with Paul and John and George in the pre-Beatles band called the Quarrymen, and they were just a cover band back in 1958, of course, a couple of years before the Beatles actually broke through. This was their very first band that they were ever in, and, for giggles, they just did a demo tape with Buddy Holly's That'll Be the Day, and in spite of all of the danger on the other side of it, when it went up for sale in 2012, it was named the rarest record in Britain. It went for around £200,000, which is roughly about $318,000 that year. So it's worth just over $400,000 right now. But yeah, this is one of the very few copies that are actually being made.
Well, I love spending time with you, and I'm hoping we can do this every Thursday. Would that be cool with you?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I'd love talking to you, Sam.
Fantastic. Eric Alpert joins us here. Well, he's going to join us every Thursday, which is fantastic. Joining us, publicist and music commentator. Always learn something from Eric. Certainly appreciate his time today. When we come back, it's Lunch with Sam. Sherry Lynn Starkey and Alex Cullen are going to talk about those top news stories of the day. Are you keeping track? Because there are lots of news stories today. You want to lock it into Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
Going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
I'm Derek Fage.
And I'm Timothy Walker.
And we invite you to join us on election night.
Starts at 7:30 on Channel 22. We'll also be live streaming and have everything that you need to know.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 20th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it is 6 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A pair of Ottawa police officers at the local and provincial levels are taking the stand at the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act. And we're already hearing of admissions of error and calls for new witnesses. City News Parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
We've started testimony today with Acting Deputy Chief Patricia Ferguson, who was in charge of planning for the Ottawa Police when the convoy arrived. She's been questioned by the lawyer for the Commission about several levels of warning, including from the OPP, that the convoy crowd was planning a prolonged protest that could last weeks. Ferguson says they had other information to suggest it would just be a couple of days.
When we addressed the community, preparing them for this, we said a prolonged event. And for us, the experience in that was over the 3 days, of the weekend. So did we err in our assessment of this?
Ferguson says they used a boilerplate plan to deal with the convoy, and after the first weekend, they realized they needed to pivot. However, days later on February 4th, there was still no new strategy. Meanwhile, 3 groups withstanding in the inquiry say they've asked the Commission to call Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Solicitor General Sylvia Jones to testify. In a statement, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association says after the testimony from city officials about the action or inaction of the province, it's important Canadians hear from them. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Now weather with Jill Taylor.
A cloudy, windy, cool day and some showers at times, especially for the afternoon into the evening. We could even see some wet flurries mixing in for the evening and then partly cloudy conditions overnight. The guaranteed high below average once again near 9 degrees, 2 for the low, and then tomorrow up to 14. It will be windy, sun and cloud, not as cool though, and the weekend looks beautiful. Lots of sunshine, highs near 19. For today, the guaranteed high, 9.
City News time is 12:42. The municipal election is just 4 days away, and if you're still undecided or you have no idea who is even running in your ward, the City Election Management has the perfect tool to help you out. Michelle Rochette, the City of Ottawa Election Manager, tells the Sam Laprade Show. The first thing to do is head to their website, ottawa.ca/vote.
There was a ward boundary change as well, so there's an opportunity to make sure you know what ward you're voting in. There's an opportunity to view all the candidates in your ward, to figure out where you're voting. So there's lots of tools on there. I encourage people to use that. They can also call our office at 613-580-2660, and we have staff that will be willing to also answer their questions.
And she tells us they have made accessibility provisions at all voting locations to also allow for a seamless process for voters with special needs. Remember that we head to the polls next Monday. Challenges remain at the Perth and Smiths Falls District Hospital due to COVID-19. City News reporter Chris Curries has the details.
The president and CEO says there are still severe pressures in the emergency department, and they're facing compound pressures overall at their hospital.
These days we have between 40 and 45% of our inpatients no longer needing acute care, but unable to be placed in the community.
Michael Cohen says they are also seeing a significant spike in COVID-19 illnesses among patients. He tells Wake Up with Rob that the staffing situation is currently stable but fragile, similar to what it's like across the province due to a lack of availability of qualified healthcare workers. Chris Curries, City News.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you
so much for spending time with us here on City News. We're certainly happy that you're here. And of course, you're watching us on Rogers TV and listening to us on City News. And you might have noticed, hey, there's some changes that's happened at City News. And we're so excited to share those with you. You may already have tuned in at 5 o'clock in the morning to Andrew Boyle. Of course, he is bringing you the news starting that early in the morning. And from 6 to 9, my colleague, my friend, Rob Snow is here with you. He is waking up with you, which is fantastic. You're going to get all the great news from Rob, great guests as well. From 9 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the morning, the one and only David Smith, our host and producer here, he's taking your calls. Still an opportunity to have your voice heard here on City News. He's always got great topics for you. You'll want to call in to David Smith every day between 9 and 10. And then I take you from 10 a.m. right through until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're doing things a little bit different in the 12 to 1 time slot. We're doing what we call Lunch with Sam. We're bringing a couple of community business leaders in to talk about the top 5 news stories of the day, which of course there are many more today. It's certainly a busy news day. And from 12:30 to 1, we're focusing on business at the business lunch. So happy to welcome to the show Sherry Lynn Starkey and Alex Cullen. Hello to you both.
Hello. How are you?
Great to be connected. Sherry Lynn Starkey is with Sherry Lynn Starkey Consulting, and Alex Cullen, former city councillor. It is certainly a busy news day. Let's talk first of all about the testimony we heard yesterday from Councillor Diane Dean. She joined me here just after the 11:30 news here on City News. That testimony was quite a few bombshells in there. Sherry Lynn, would you agree?
Yes, not least of which is the fact that she was actually making recordings of her conversations with the mayor. I think a few eyebrows were raised about that one.
It was certainly interesting. Alex, have you been watching the Emergencies Act inquiry closely?
I've been following it. It's quite revealing. We clearly knew at the time that there were problems within the Auto Police Service, but here we're getting the inside scoop on the dynamics. Diane Dean's talking about the difficulties within the senior ranks of Auto Police. She described it as an insurrection, and it's clear that they not only did they have problems dealing with the intelligence that they were getting, but organizing around a plan to deal with what ultimately became an occupation and ultimately led to the resignation of the police chief. So very fascinating material. Mm-hmm. And of course the inside politics of what was happening between the mayor and the head of the police service board at the time, Diane Deans, which ultimately led to her removal by council led by the mayor, even though she was doing the job that she was appointed to do. So fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. And I know, Sherry Lynn, during especially the so-called Freedom Convoy, there was so much happening in social media. And we know, obviously a lot of this played out in the media. How important do you think that is as we hear from people that are testifying at the inquiry?
How important is the media coverage? Well, I feel like partially we're kind of like reliving the experience again now by having it dominate the airwaves and the media and having all the details going over with great granularity. But I feel like the media is doing their job by, shining a light on what happened. And I mean, I don't think any of us expected to get the kind of back office insights that we're getting, the back office deals and negotiations and stuff. So I think it's quite enlightening for for Ottawa citizens to be able to see what exactly was going on at City Hall and with the Ottawa Police Services in trying to manage this episode that we had earlier this year in Ottawa.
For sure. And your perspective, Alex, is so interesting because we know, of course, you served this city for a very long time and a former city councillor. This type of politicking that we saw through the so-called Freedom Convoy and even now with this inquiry, the Emergencies Act inquiry, is this something that you saw during your time?
No, not at all. I mean, we had major demonstrations. I was there for the G20 demonstrations when G20 came to Ottawa, and there were large demonstrations. There was some criticism about how the police handled that, but in general, the police coordinated with the RCMP, with other forces to deal with the large crowds. It was peaceful. People had a chance to protest and send their message, and then it was over. So you knew that the police had a plan, and they executed it. Here, I mean, the inquiry is there so that we don't find ourselves in this position again. And unfortunately, the protest evolved into an occupation, which eventually led to the Emergency Measures Act, well, the Emergency Act, to finally put an end to that occupation. And that's what the inquiry is all about. We don't want to repeat this. We want to make sure that the authorities are properly prepared. There is a right to protest, and everyone acknowledges that, but there's not a right to abuse the downtown population, to block roads, to harass people. And ultimately, that had to be dealt with, and we don't want to see another repeat of that.
Absolutely agree. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about this important election coming up on Monday, October 24th, an opportunity for everyone to cast a ballot. A number of people, upwards of 80,000 people, have already cast a ballot for this election. This mayoral candidates that we've been chatting about, of course, 14 of them. Some leaders definitely that we're seeing include Catherine McKenney, Mark Sutcliffe, Bob Shirelli. We've got a number of 11 other candidates that have definitely put their platforms forward. When it comes to money, Sherilyn, and the budget platforms that have been put forward, where do you stand? What are you seeing here? It seems like there's a lot of jockeying going on right now in terms of money.
Well, it's interesting that this ends up being the main issue upon which people are campaigning, because the beginning of the election it wasn't about taxes and affordability. Really, it was more about transportation. But I think that it's a reflection of what the kind of pain that people are feeling in their lives right now with the rampant inflation and price increases. People are really, really focused on the bottom line, and I think the candidates are quite right to be showcasing how their plans for their fiscal arrangements and the financial commitments that they want to make.
So interesting. What are you seeing, Alex?
Well, the real test is how are people going to deliver on the budget promises that they made, and this is where experience, in my view, counts. You've got one candidate who not only has been there in terms of being a member of council for 2 terms, but also when they worked in at City Hall as a senior advisor to the city manager, saw firsthand the budget process. But ultimately, all the candidates, whoever gets elected, is going to have to not only cobble together a budget, but also sell it to council, because it will take a council vote to put it into place. And this is where it's not just the mayor's race that's interesting. We have 11 open seats, and people are talking about the various issues, about services, about transportation, about road quality, all these things. And they're, generally speaking, a lot of promises are made, but there's only so much money to go around. And so this is where particularly the top 2 candidates, McKenney and Sutcliffe, there's not a lot of difference in the overall impact on people's taxes, but there clearly are differences in priorities. And the test will come. Who can be believed to be able to deliver? And that's why I think experience counts for a lot.
Absolutely. Sherilyn, has this been a fair campaign so far at the mayoral level, do you think?
Oh, well, I think, yes, fair. I am always disappointed when campaigns go on the negative, and I think we've seen a fair amount of negative campaigning through this session, and I always find that that's unfortunate when candidates are focusing more on the negative statements about their opponents rather than campaigning on their own ideas and their own inspirations. But overall, it's been a fair campaign, and I think the numbers speak for themselves. They're saying it's too close to call.
And from your lens, Alex Cullen, what do you think in terms of this campaign being fought fairly?
Well, it's an election campaign. Campaigns count. This is a big city. It's hard for a candidate to meet every voter, but clearly it costs money to run campaigns, and you can see that who's got the signs up, who's been able to reach out into different communities, deliver their message, who's got the volunteers to help them out, and I think it's good that for the electorate to have such a contest. Hopefully it'll drive up turnout. In previous campaigns, elections, we've seen 40% or so, which is disappointing when you're looking at a $6 billion city operation that impacts all of us with all the services. The challenges of dealing with an LRT system, the challenges of the proper priorities for policing, the challenges of providing services at a level that people can afford. I mean, these are perennial, and I think the electorate has a good choice. In every campaign, someone will criticize another opponent's platform, and people have to sift through all that. I'm hoping that this mayoralty campaign, plus the 11 open seats we have, will drive up voter participation, and democracy will give us judgment on Monday.
Well, I definitely agree with that last part for sure, and Sherry Lynn is agreeing as well. When we come back, we're going to chat about what's happening across the pond. We're coming back with Sherry Lynn Starkey and Alex Cullen on Lunch with Sam. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
My husband is a wonderful man and a great father when he's not drinking. I'm so angry he chooses alcohol over us. If he really loved us, he'd stop drinking, right? My counselor suggested I try Al-Anon. I didn't understand why. I'm not the one with the problem, but I'm glad I went. Do you worry about someone's drinking? You are not alone. Al-Anon or Alateen can help. Call 866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Jean-Marie! Fire! The neighbor's farm is on fire. It's almost to the road. It's heading for us.
Help me get the animals out of the barn.
The fire's getting closer.
I'm on the horse.
The house is burning.
Get out to the river. Get up.
Can't leave everything. Careful. Don't fall.
Come on. We have to hurry.
Hurry. There's the river. We're going to make it. I can't swim.
Yes, you can.
Hurry. Hurry.
You must get in.
I can't.
Watch out for sparks.
His hair's on fire.
Keep the hair wet.
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Hi, I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, we're all getting together at lunch, which is fantastic here on City News and, of course, on Rogers TV. We're inviting a couple of community and business leaders in to talk about the top 5 stories of the day. We call it Lunch with Sam. And who's dining with me today? Sherry Lynn Starkey and Alex Cullen. Thanks for joining us again.
Pleasure.
Hiya.
Let's head across the pond, Alex. We know Liz Truss, she has resigned as Prime Minister. She was only there for about 6 weeks. She met with Queen Elizabeth, and we know, of course, Queen Elizabeth passed away just a couple of days later. And now she's resigned under King Charles. What does this say about what's happening in the UK?
Well, I think she actually captured it in her exiting statement. She said she was unable to deliver the mandate upon which she was elected. And you have to look at the Conservative Party that did go through the leadership process, had a number of candidates to choose from. She put forward an aggressive program to cut taxes, particularly for the wealthy. And she got elected on that basis. And when she tried to implement that program, the world collapsed on her. The pound fell precipitously. There was a financial crisis, and she had to backtrack. And so clearly, what the Conservative Party elected to have happen, Elizabeth Truss to be Prime Minister and deliver on that campaign promise, well, she can't. And so now the Conservative Party is faced with picking a 4th leader in, I think, 3 years, and it's a mess that they've created on their own. So and Labour is leading in the polls. That's the opposition. Whether or not the Conservatives can dig themselves out of this hole remains to be seen. One of the more bizarre things is that Boris Johnson is being touted as a possible replacement. I mean, he delivered on Brexit, but his administration was incompetent, and there was a reason why he resigned and opened the door. So remains to be seen what happens next, but the pound has recovered with this news that Elizabeth Truss has left.
It's certainly interesting. I'm sure, Sherry Lynn, that Liz Truss hasn't even unpacked her boxes at 10 Downey Street, and she's already gone. What were your thoughts?
Well, you know, I lived in the UK for 20 years, and I'm a British passport holder, even though I'm a native Canadian. And all I could say is I felt kind of like immense sadness when the story broke this morning. And I'm not being political about that. It's just there's such turmoil in that country, and it's relentless, and it's impacting the citizens and the people that live there in very real ways, in their pocketbooks, in their day-to-day lives. All this tumultuous change that's started when Brexit was first decided in an election in 2015, I think it was. So I'm very sad. I hear from my family members there. They say that it's almost civil unrest in the streets because people are just up in arms, and there's no they don't see a path forward and how they're going to get themselves out of this mess. And so I am very, very sad to see this, what's happened. I just hope that the Conservatives can, very, very quickly sort something out so that there's clear leadership at the top of that country, and that they elect someone who is actually able to set a path forward.
Very interesting perspective there. Alex, did you want to add something?
Well, yes. I mean, they've changed the leader, and I hear very much what's being said here, but the problems still remain. Brexit was a half-baked deal. They still have to deal with the problems of Northern Ireland because Northern Ireland has a free trade agreement with the Republic of Ireland, which is in the common market. So that problem remains unresolved. They have inflation issues. They've got energy price issues. The war in Ukraine also impacts on Britain. So massive challenges, and not an easy way to see forward. But the Conservatives, which were one of the more successful administrations in British history, have dug themselves such a hole. I don't know if they can climb out of it. I mean, here's hoping, but it's going to be a tough go.
It is going to be a tough go. I totally agree.
Appreciate that very much. We know that COVID hasn't gone away, although, some people think it has. If you've been anywhere lately, there's not a lot of masks being worn. Sherry Lynn, when you think about this new variant that we're hearing about in terms of COVID, what are your thoughts, whether we were speaking a month or 2 months from now, where do you think we're going to be in the COVID situation?
Well, if you're referring to like the possibility of more lockdowns and restrictions, I actually don't think we're going to go there. I don't think citizens are prepared to do, stay at home any more than they already have. I think it's all going to be kind of like your personal responsibility to protect yourself and protect your family, and people will be making choices about that. But these new variants are scary. Like, I know some people have a cough and other people are laid out for 2 weeks.
It's certainly interesting for sure. I know a number of people sort of in my network have experienced it in the last couple of weeks, and they're certainly not well. Alex, what are you hearing?
Well, I've just gone through the COVID experience, both my wife and I, and it wasn't pleasant, but we got through it. My expectation is that we are going to see masks brought back onto the table, the requirement to wear masks. I think we're being saved. I mean, the COVID itself is highly transmissible, and we're entering our 7th or 8th wave, and which leads me to the conclusion that we are going to see mask mandates. I don't think we'll see lockdowns. I think what's saving us or saving the healthcare system is the fact that so many people have been inoculated. I mean, I had my 4 shots, and so going through the COVID process, one day I was wiped out, and then took a couple of days to recover, and then I'm pretty much back to normal. But the fact that this wave is out there, I think is going to prompt more use of masks. But not everyone has got their vaccinations, and this is where the trouble lies, because people who don't have the vaccinations are very vulnerable and will end up overloading our hospital system. So we're not out of the woods. We're better prepared because many of us have that vaccination, but we need more people to be vaccinated, and we need to protect ourselves, as Sherry Lynn says, and that means wearing masks.
Really interesting, and let's end on a bit of a fun note. We know there's lots of obviously big news today, but let's talk a little bit about our Ottawa Senators and Sherry Lynn. We know opening night, home opener, definitely was a big success. Seeing Alfie throw the puck down certainly was great for the fans. Will you be heading to any games, Sherry Lynn?
Well, I'm trying to talk my husband into going to the one tonight, actually, because the Washington Capitals are coming to town.
Right.
And I lived in Washington for a few years, too, so I spent a lot of time watching the Washington Capitals play when I was down there. But, the reports from the stories from opening night, like, this is something that the people of Ottawa needed so badly after what we've been through over the last couple of years, just to get together and celebrate the home team. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Alex, are you heading to Canadian Tire Centre?
Well, for a couple of games, possibly. I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan, so I hope I can survive that, but I think I'm in good company. But I have to say, the game that the Senators had against the Bruins, their home opener here in town, was a very entertaining game. I mean, the Sens came away with a big win against a team that's a perennial Stanley Cup contender. It's just the beginning of the season. But it was a great game, and if we can have more of those, then it'll make the end of winter, the beginning of spring, a lot better if our Sens are in the playoff hunt. And so far, it's looking good.
Amen to that. Absolutely. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Sherry Lynn Starkey joining us from Sherry Lynn Starkey Consulting, and Alex Cullen, of course, a former city councillor. Thanks for joining us for Lunch with Sam.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for lunch, Sam.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I would like to see politicians and government overall, especially local, start to support local business more, because we've had so many businesses that have shut down, and I would like to see local business grow and politicians give more, whether that's a financial contribution or some other layer of support, but something to encourage them to keep business going.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 20th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right here in Ottawa, it is 7 degrees. In Smith Falls, it is 8. And here's what's making news this hour. The OPP warned that the support from political figures for the trucker convoy was likely to embolden protesters in the downtown core. This assessment was in a report compiled on February 6th. That was more than a week after demonstrators settled on the Hill. Police warned that this support was likely to give protesters credibility and validate their tactics and possibly lead to more blockades elsewhere in the country. The intelligence was presented as evidence to the public inquiry examining the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. It did not mention any political figures by name. Meanwhile, former Ottawa Police Services Board Chair Councillor Diane Deans says all the decisions that she made during the trucker convoy occupation was in the best interest of this community. Councillor Deans tells the Sam Laprade show her major focus during the occupation was to bring it to an end so that normalcy could be returned to the streets of the downtown core. Deans testified at the inquiry looking into the federal government's unprecedented use of the Emergencies Act yesterday. About 85,000 eligible voters have already cast their ballots in the upcoming race for mayor, councillor and school board trustee. If you're yet to cast your votes, the city's election manager, Michelle Rochette, says come Monday, 300 voting stations will be open across the city for you to cast your vote seamlessly. All the voting stations will have accessibility provisions in place, and staff will also be on site to help out and answer any questions that residents might have. Municipal Election Day is Monday, October 24th. City News time is 12:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
I'm Gord Taylor with City News traffic. The 174 eastbound is down in one lane for construction between Jeanne d'Arc and Place des Lignes till 2:30 this afternoon. And in Gatineau, the 50 eastbound is closed between Montcalm and Highway 5 for work till 3 o'clock. There's also work today on the Sir George Etienne Cartier Parkway between the Aviation Parkway and Birch that runs till 3 o'clock this afternoon. And ongoing construction continues on the Sir George Etienne Cartier Parkway between Acacia and Hillside. Best Buy's Ultimate Appliance event's on until November 3rd. Save up to $1,000 when buying 2 or more major kitchen appliances online or in-store at Best Buy. With a forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here's meteorologist Joe Taylor.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, well, it's lunchtime, and we're doing a new feature here every day, right after the 12:30 news, right till 1 o'clock. We're focusing on all things business. And we wanted to spend some time today with Christine Ledman, on the business lunch. She's executive director of the Bank Street BIA. How are you, Christine?
I'm good, Sam. How are you?
Good. Well, we're going to be chatting with all things business for half an hour a day, but you do it 24/7. Talk to me a little bit about what's happening on Bank Street.
Well, it's pretty quiet these days. Business still hasn't seen an uptake in people visiting the area, but that doesn't stop them with getting ready for the Halloween season. So there's going to be little goodies and things like that available to people who visit the businesses on Bank Street on Halloween, and special promotions. Just follow our social media and you'll see that there's some promotions that will be going on for people if they want to come in their costumes and so on and get their names in for a draw. So we try to do as much as we can to keep people interested in coming down to Bank Street.
For sure. I know I was on Bank Street during the Pride Festival. City News was there broadcasting live, and it was really amazing to me how many businesses that were on Bank Street that I didn't know had moved there.
Yes.
I think sort of revisiting Bank Street is something we're encouraging everyone to do, because there certainly is lots of variety and businesses you may not even know that are there.
Absolutely, and every time I turn around, there's like a new one opening. So it's exciting to see that, because it speaks to the confidence that people are, feeling about going into business again and being an entrepreneur. And that's what our main streets are all about. And it's really important, Sam, to keep our urban core healthy and strong, because it's in the best interest of everyone.
And we're hearing, Christine, from a lot of people, during this, Emergencies Act inquiry, that it's bringing up a lot of those feelings that people had in January, February of this year. Is it challenging for you to sort of hear some of the testimony and knowing how impactful it was for the people on Bank Street, the members of the BIA?
It is very eye-opening, I think. I mean, we, all the BIAs, we were all aware of this coming forward, and we were on calls every day. So, and the question we kept saying, well, what's the plan? What's the plan? What's the plan? And it was like, well, everything is fluid. So we sort of got to hate the word fluid for a while. But I think that it does make you think back, and the unbelievable impact that it had on our businesses was significant, more than the pandemic itself. Because at least during the pandemic, people could pick up their supplies, whatever they were looking to get a hold of. Certainly no personal services, but at the time you were allowed to have, they had just lifted the restrictions. And like my business was saying that they were hurt more during this than they were during the whole pandemic. Their losses were significant.
And
it's really, to climb out of that hole from the pandemic and then you put that on top is a challenge for sure.
And my question, Christine, has it lingered?
Oh, it does. And every time we get notification of, because we get notifications all the time from the city when there is a protest, a walk, or things like that, so we can notify our members. And that just sends a chill, when you get these. Oh, are we going to experience the same thing? What is this one going to be like? Then you start to question all the valid ones that are bringing forward, a purpose or a rationale for what they're doing, and, whether it's, to protest the Ukraine war or something. So there, it sends a chill whenever you see these notifications coming now. So you just wonder what kind of impact is this going to have.
We know just over 2 months from now, I don't mean to scare you, Christine, but Christmas is coming.
Yes.
I know you know that, but it just feels like it's creeping up on me. I think that was more of a personal note, thinking, oh my heavens, what I have to do between now and Christmas. But certainly from
Bank Street.
Exactly. I was just thinking that. So in terms of business and in terms of shopping, obviously encouraging people to shop local is a message we've heard from the Ottawa Board of Trade, of course, and every BIA that I've spoke to. How can we actually do this? I mean, obviously it's, park your car or walk to Bank Street, but is there something that we should know in terms of the members and maybe what they are offering? Where can we go to sort of learn more about them?
Well, I mean, always to the Bank Street website. I mean, we do promote on all our social media platforms. We bring everything forward from our members. We'll also be running our own little program, as well, the Jingle Bus like we did last year, with something a little twist this year. So it's always good to follow on our social media platforms, because that's where we promote and put out what our members are offering. Even if they put it on theirs, we help promote it out there as well. We do have a strong following, and so it's better when we get all that messaging from our members directly out there. And so this is the best way to find out what's happening down on Bank Street.
And one of the reasons that I really wanted to focus this half hour on, for the business lunch, if you will, on businesses, is because I think there's lots of information that the average consumer doesn't really understand. And I'd like to sort of maybe take a step back and describe the role of a BIA.
Well, basically, a business improvement area, and that's what the BIA stands for. Sometimes they think it's association, but you basically manage a specific geographical boundary as set out by the city to work to promote and advocate for that specific area. So we would do pageantry, we do cleanup, we do graffiti cleanup, we do murals programs. We partner with our members to put on micro events with them. We put on major events, festivals on our area as well. But we also advocate on their behalf when it comes to city policies, whether it's with regards to parking, garbage removal, anything to do with the physical infrastructure along the streetscape. We keep the city apprised of that. We're very much partners with the city in that regard. If there's things happening in terms of the city's assets, we will notify 311 to say that there's an issue with this. And so we're always there in support of our members as much as we can, and not just retailers. We also represent the property owners as well. So along with the retail sector or the commercial sector, we do represent the landowners as well.
Because it's so interesting to me. I mean, I'm thinking more about sort of those independent businesses that may be sort of those mom and pop shops, those smaller groups. It can be really isolating to be an entrepreneur, right? So I think the BIA as well sort of, helps with that isolation, and having somebody else look out for your business can only be a win-win, I would think.
Absolutely. And the nice thing about it is, all the BIAs are connected. There's 19 of us in the city of Ottawa. We work collaboratively. If someone is experiencing a specific issue, they'll come to the rest of us and say, hey, has anybody gone through this? What was your approach? How do I deal with it? So there is a lot more support out there that's even broader beyond our own boundaries, because we do work collaboratively, with our BIA colleagues. So I think there's a lot of strength that comes with the BIA. In particular, if a member, like during the pandemic, we, hired grant writers to support our businesses, because they're not used to filling out these, onerous grant applications, and they can be very challenging. And so, this is where we come in with our support. And you have to be flexible, you have to be nimble, and you have to be able to respond to those issues so that you are there in support of your businesses.
Beautifully said. And Christine, remind us, we of course all know where Bank Street is, but particularly the Bank Street BIA, where do you go from, sort of Wellington to Catherine?
Yes, that's correct. Okay. And so sometimes we take in a couple of properties that are sort of east and west off Bank, but not very many at this point. But we are going to be, revisiting what we are about, and we're in that process right now, Sam. And I think that we have to look at ourselves in a different way, and what we do, and how we broaden our perspective in how we can, survive or protect and, revitalize our urban core. And that's kind of our strategy vision right now. That's going to be our goal coming into 2023.
For sure. And of course, it's lunchtime. And now you've just mentioned, where the BIA is. And I'm thinking about Wilf and Ada's. And now I'm hungry, of course. We love Wilphin. There's lots of great businesses along that corridor, and I know how challenging it has been to be an executive director of a BIA at this time. And Christine, you've always been so generous with your time. I appreciate it again today.
My pleasure, Sam, and thank you very much for putting another voice out there on behalf of our small business. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Christine Ledman joining us, Executive Director of the Bank Street BIA. We're going to be chatting with a couple of business owners after our quick break. Patty Taggart's going to be here from Tag Along Toys. It is Small Business Week. So it's a great time to start getting ahead maybe of that Christmas shopping. Yes, I said it. It is coming fast and furious. And we're also going to speak with Jennifer McKay. She's going to talk about her business as well. This is an opportunity to get to know those businesses in our community on the business lunch. Lock it in on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, the Lone Star joins us on the show. They're going to be sharing some great recipe ideas using their slow-cooked brisket. And the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum joins us. They're going to be telling us about their brand new edition called Rex, which is a Mars rover prototype. Also on the show, the Day of the Dead Festival is back. We'll give you all the details on that and much more. That's on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
He fell. Whoa, I'm not driving. I'm way too stoned. How are you feeling, Beer?
Oh, since we had that talk, I'm not driving tonight at all.
What about you, Dave?
You only had a couple of drinks.
And only a couple of puffs.
I don't drink and drive. No way I'm getting behind the wheel when I smoked weed, too.
How are we getting home, then?
Oh, you can drive, Dave.
Come on, Dave.
Take one for the team, buddy.
Don't let weed and alcohol influence your decision to drive.
Yeah, I need a ride.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
I'm Derek Fage.
And I'm Kimothy Walker.
And we invite you to join us on election night on Rogers TV and, of course, on our website.
We're going to have a panel of experts and community leaders joining us as we provide everything that you need to know about this municipal election because it could be historic.
There's going to be a lot of new faces around the council chambers, as you can imagine, and we are going to break it all down for you.
So 7:30 on Channel 22. Please join us.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, certainly during the pandemic, small business owners took a hit. We want to support them as much as possible, especially this upcoming Christmas season. It is Small Business Week. We wanted to speak with Patty Taggart. Hi, Patty.
Oh, hi, Sam. How are you?
Good. Patty is with Tag Along Toys. And Patty, you are just awesome. I have to say, you have been through a lot and always a smile on your face when people walk through the door. What's it like to have a toy store?
Oh, Sam, I feel the same way about you. Always full of energy, and I love it.
Thanks.
You know what? It's such a fun industry to be in. It really is. People walk in the store, and they usually all have smiles on their faces, which just gives you more energy to want to provide to them. But it's a lot of fun. It's a tough industry. There's lots of competition out there, but I, try my best to sort of keep things different than anybody else carries. And I think one of the things, like you just said, is we really pride ourselves on customer service. I just had a lady who was just in, and she said, I only come here because I love the service you guys give me here. And I thought, I love hearing that.
For sure. And it's hard, though, Patty, to find staff. I mean, you can't be there every minute of the day. Has that been a challenge during this pandemic?
Yeah, it has. I'm very fortunate, I have to say, and I say this to people all the time. I've had staff, one of my staff who a lot of people have met before, Sherry. Sherry's worked here since the day we've opened, and she's like my left arm. And my other staff who work the weekends have actually all been here a minimum 3 to 4 years. So I'm very fortunate that I have great staff, but there are times for sure when some of them leave that I have to find new staff, and that has been a challenge definitely through the summer months. It was I had an ad up I think all summer, and no one was able to come and help. So of course you do what you have to do, and all of us sort of gathered together and we worked the shifts that we could. And sometimes we've cut back on some of the hours, and I know some people get upset when they come in. They're like, why do you open at noon? And I say, well, it's staffing, and some of us are still wearing masks in the store, so working 5-hour days with a mask can be challenging, and I like to support my staff, so 5-hour days is what we do sometimes.
Now, your location is sort of near Billings Bridge, but you're near the Farm Boy is a better way of describing it. What's that
we're in
little
the
mall called?
Blue Heron. Yeah, it's called the Blue Heron Mall, and I tell people when they're trying to figure out where we are, if you've gone to South Keys, you've gone too far, and if you've gone to Billings Bridge, you've gone too far. We're right in the smack in the middle.
Right. Perfect way to describe it. What's that location like? That parking lot, I shop at a lot of different places there, always seems to be pretty busy, right?
It is always busy. That's one of the things that I know some people come in, they're like, I finally found a parking spot. It's not a great big mall. It's, it's a small mall, but it has Farm Boy as an anchor, so it's a busy mall because of Farm Boy, but we also have the fabulous Pelican just down from us, the seafood place. It's always busy. The restaurant is, their takeout. So, it's a great little mall, all small independent, businesses in this mall, so it's nice because people come and do their one-stop shop. They've got the bird store as well that, has just down the road from us as well. So it's, it's a great little mall with lots of small stores, and people always say we come in and do our one-stop shop.
Which is fantastic. Okay, I have to ask you the big question. All mums and dads are wondering the same question. Big toys for this year, Patty. Do you know already what Santa's going to be putting under the tree?
Well, one of the big things for us this year that has come in, and we've had to restock a couple of times, it's that squishies. I'm sure your daughter is still into them. It's a squishy maker. So it's a machine that you actually create your own squishies. So you can make them with sparkles. You can make them different colors. It is a fabulous item. It's called, Dr. Squish Squishy Maker. And then the other one is this new one we got in. It's called a chemistry cauldron. So it's basically making potions and making different, different chemistry experiments. And you have your own little cauldron, and you mix everything in it. It's quite neat.
How fun is that?
2 big ones.
Well, if someone knows the top toys, it's Patty Taggart for sure. Patty, really appreciate your time today. I know how busy you are, and keep up the great work. I know that the time obviously heading towards Christmas will be really busy. We hopefully encourage somebody today to shop local, and appreciate your time always.
Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate this.
My pleasure. Patty Taggart spending time with us today from Tag Along Toys. We wanted to spotlight some small businesses this week on the Business Lunch, and we wanted to speak with Jennifer Cobain-McKay joining us right now from Just Geno. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Thank you for having me on today.
Well, I'm so excited. I hear that maybe this is the first interview you've done about your product.
It is.
Okay, well, we're going to make it fantastic, Jennifer. So,
all right, thank you.
Let me ask you, first of all, tell us what you've done.
Okay, so I'm the owner and founder of Just Geno Inc., and so I designed our perfectly portioned panware product. We're a family-owned business. I'm home-based. We're a Canadian small business. I'm out of Burlington, Ontario. We just launched our online shop at www.justgeno.com, where as of earlier this week, customers can purchase our perfectly portioned panware.
Okay, so tell us why you developed this, because it is quite unique looking. What are you hoping families will get out of this product?
We're looking to assist busy individuals and families with healthy meal preparation. We're looking for the opportunity to help households save time, save money, and save the environment at the same time. So in terms of saving time, with meal preparation, the panware design basically has small, shallow cavities that allows for reduced bake and cook times. Because it's made of silicone, a food-grade silicone, that it's easy for cleanup. So then again, you're saving time on messy cleanups. And then it also has a quarter cup and half cup fill lines in it with a lid. And so it allows users to create freezer batched meals so that if you're needing to grab a meal quickly at home and go, that you could probably prepare that from frozen state to the plate in probably less than 30 minutes.
Okay, this is fantastic. I'm a busy mom. I'm a single mom. So every minute counts, right? I mean, you know. So what would we be making? Are we making, individual items? And give us some suggestions of what we're making.
A lot of the items that we've been using it for, so it comes in two colors. Oftentimes people ask, well, why would I want more than one? Obviously, it is a multi-purpose tool, but some of the reasons why you may have two is one, maybe you designate for baking, maybe one you designate for freezing or cooking in. But essentially within those cavities you can produce, we do like banana loaves, we do stuff for lunches where my kids will help us make like a bagel bite that's stuffed with cream cheese, pizza bars. You can also make mini shepherd pies. You could do meatloaf. Kind of the opportunities are endless with the panware. People have frozen soups, bone broth, breast milk, raw dog food, whatever you choose to use it for. But essentially those pre-portioned cubes are kind of what gives you the shortcut to, having it go from frozen state to your plate.
Well, it's so interesting because my daughter, she's going to be 15, but I remember when she was quite young, sort of looking for a product like this. I didn't, you've actually, you've done all the homework and you've designed it. I didn't know what I was looking for, but as I'm hearing you, I'm thinking that's what I was looking for. Something that was easy, especially when she was little. I really appreciate this, Jennifer, and I wish you all the success, as you move forward with this business. The one thing I know about small business owners, one of the big key factors, each and every one of you are super brave to put a product out there, come up with an idea, market it, and take it to market. So I really do appreciate everything you're doing. Good luck. I think this is just one interview. You're going to be doing lots of them, Jennifer.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Jennifer Cobain McKay joining us from Just Geno. So if you want to check out that product, really important, great Canadian business person there. We've had lots of guests today. Lots of hot topics, of course, in our newsroom. We know that we're following the Emergencies Act inquiry very closely. Patricia Ferguson was in the hot seat today. She, of course, Deputy Police Chief with Ottawa Police Services. We heard a little bit earlier from Councillor Diane Deans. She was in the hot seat yesterday. There are 65 people in total that are testifying at this inquiry, and maybe even more. A lot of people calling on Premier Doug Ford to be called to testify as well. We know that this is definitely not in the cards yet, but you just never know what's going to happen with this inquiry. What you'll want to do is you'll want to stay with Rogers TV and City News for the news of the afternoon. Up next, Danielle Bain. Stay with us, everyone.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
you're suffering from depression, your disability claim is